So please welcome Timon Bielharber, who will talk about virtual and augmented reality. Welcome.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Luc, for giving me the chance here. Whoops, careful down there. To talk a little bit about a new perspective, maybe on 360-degree. You know already about virtual reality, how this kind of pushes and boosts the 360 content, but I'll also talk a little bit about augmented reality. I from World of VR, we are a very new company, only a couple months old, and let me just talk a little bit about myself. I'm from Germany. We started a company in Germany, and I worked 10 years in the telecommunications industry. And then I followed this virtual reality topic, so I'm coming from the virtual and augmented reality space for the past 4 or 5 years, and established this topic in my previous company, but then I thought at some point, well, this is getting too boring, too slow, I need to do something else, and then I jumped ship and started this company, World of VR, with a couple of people. We are now already one of the largest startups in the area in Germany, with 12 people. Among others, my lovely wife over there. She's a photographer as well. And I'll tell you a little bit about the following topics. Cool eyes, right? I will grab your attention. So I'll talk about a little bit of the history of VR. Casey already talked a little bit about it. It was very cool, so I don't have to extend so much on it, but also how virtual and augmented reality is, how we believe, the missing piece. The missing piece also to commercialize, maybe even better, the 360 content that you already have in your pockets. Then I'll talk a little bit about, well, specifically what are the new ways that we can evolve or boost the 360 content with augmented reality, with virtual reality. And we have some examples here that I will showcase later. And then I'll also talk a little bit about behind the scenes, how does that stuff actually work, and is it easy to get into, and what can you do, how can you see it. So this was the Kaiser panorama. Probably most of you know it. This is kind of like the earliest documented trial to get into stereoscopic views or stereoscopic pictures. And it was already, kind of advanced for that time, but no technology involved at that time already. But that was the first try. But if we look a little bit further about the history of virtual and augmented reality, we have seen this cool Sensorama from KC just now, and this one is what Ivan Sutherland did. He was a Harvard professor in the 60s. In 68, he invented this sword of Damocles because it's really hanging over your head, and you'll see how it moves. The video will play. So this was the first documented try to actually have a mounted headset. It's mounted to the wall, but you were already able to move freely 360-degree, and then you have an immersive, awesome experience of this, 6 wires. It was set up with a lot of mirrors, so there's not much technology involved, but it was the first kind of case of augmented and virtual reality. I'm using augmented and virtual reality kind of like interchangeably because we believe that it's going to merge at some point, and what we do is we mix these things anyway, so I'll talk a little bit about how we do it in a minute. Now, what happened after this, Ivan Sutherland did this experiment, was adopted into the military aerospace, and we had these headsets that astronomers or pilots were trained with, and then it went further into the production space of the, for example, automotive companies where they engineered and virtually prototyped their new cars. But then something else happened, and question maybe some of you asked, why is this VR now everywhere and why is it exploding right now? Why not 3 years ago? Why not 5 years from now? The good part is the technology, but actually the technology was already here a few years before. But what had to happen is this, and that's why I want to introduce a face to you if you haven't seen it yet, who kind of democratized virtual reality recently in 2012. This Palmer Luckey, an American inventor, a student who put together this Oculus, you've all heard of it, for $350, and before that you had to buy one of these for about $10,000. So was a giant leap really in terms of democratization, accessibility for this kind of technology. But then that was not all. After that, it dribbled around a little bit. The community was engaged, but it was not a big thing. But then something else happened. Mark Zuckerberg, this guy, he spent $2.3 billion for that. For a gadget that he could probably have recreated easily with a couple of $1 million. But why did he spend $2.3 million on that? He really believed in the vision. And with this amount of money, suddenly everybody woke up. Everybody was like, oh, it's there, it's here, now we have to do something. And suddenly a whole ecosystem, ecoverse of virtual reality stuff appeared from out of nowhere, from startups, from big companies, from small companies, from universities. Everything pushing the democratization of this stuff further. And we don't only have these HMDs, the headsets that Casey also talked a little bit about, where we have Sony, Google, everybody in there with the stationary PC and the mobile headsets, the Google Cardboards, but we also have more accessories like control, where control is a very key issue. Once you're inside a different world, like a 360 picture, completely immersed, how do you control? There are stuff that use cameras to control your fingers, your skeletal animation here. There are stuff that uses motion control, where you have actually haptic feedback. So if you touch an apple, it will also give you the feedback that you cannot close the fingers anymore and you really grab the apple. Then there are cool bodysuits that now previously were only inside the movie industry for hundreds of thousands of dollars, motion capturing suits, and now are available or are becoming available for a couple of $100s to everybody. And then you can put your whole movement of your body into the virtual reality. Even foot control, where you put on slippery socks or shoes and then you walk on kind of like an omnidirectional treadmill and move into one place, but in the virtual world you move further. Audio as well. It's a whole new world that's developing around audio, because classical Dolby Surround doesn't work anymore once you turn your head and then the sound stays still. So there's even Eric Fassbender here from Atmospheres. He even created a Facebook group about virtual reality surround sound. I really encourage you to join it, because that's where the discussion is going on, what's the next in audio, because it really adds to the immersion also. And then of course we are cameras, I don't need to talk about that, and the metaverse, where different companies are trying to bring all these pieces, all this stuff, the content, the devices, the people, together into one thing that works easily for the user. But that's still a little bit far off. But not only these big companies, also some unexpected entries. Companies made the entry. For example, Dior, fashion company, just recently announced their own headset for virtual reality, which is, well, fashionable, I don't know, but at least they tried something. And even goes further. For example, this one is a face mask that you put really over your mouth, if you want to, if you dare to, and it gives you heat, it gives you smell, and it gives you a microphone with these funny lips there. Yeah, maybe they would need to rework the design a little bit, because it looks a little scary, but that's where it's moving. Now, why do I say the missing piece, and what do we do with it? The thing is, full spherical 360 is here already for a while, but even now with the Freedom 360 on these setups, allows us, like we saw just now, beautifully, really action shots, and not only still beautiful image, but also shots that put motion into stills. Oops. Then we have this VR, like we know, like the Oculus, that really immerses you in this action, in this motion, even if it's a still, and gives you the full experience. But now, augmented reality comes into the picture. And that's where we also come into the picture as a company. And we really love this piece, and we all even worked before Google came with this piece of cardboard, because it has also a little cutout here. And with this little cutout, you can use the camera of your smartphone to do even more. And I will show you, and you can try it here in a minute, also what I mean by that. Because with this camera cutout, you can use the real world projected onto the virtual world, and we have a mix of augmented and virtual reality, and gives you completely new applications to your 360 pictures that you have anyway. Another thing, another trend that we've seen already, we've seen a lot of Ricoh Thetas here, the small cameras. Got one here. And the Gyroptic, that's announced a partnership with Google. I don't know if you know, there are even a lot more coming out and announced. So 360-degree photography is becoming even more ubiquitous, even more everywhere. The quality will just get better and better. And This one center cam, for example, you just put on your thumb. It's so small. So it's really interesting, but what does it mean for professional 360 photography, and what may be a next step, a way to improve on existing professional material? And that's where I want to show you some new ways to evolve or even boost existing 360 with these technologies. And I'll go through like these four pieces: virtual enhancement, virtual reality, augmented reality enhancement, and I welcome you up here and back there to try it out later on after my speech. Vision enhancement and sound, we have already heard a little bit about it, but in combination, these gives you a new commercial applicability also. You have these beautiful shots, but how do you get them to the customer? We've seen a lot of 360 here on the big screen, which is great, but how do you get it in scale to everybody else? And what is the hook to get the customer to display it? I'll show you about that. So one thing that we really truly believe in, and I'm not employed or hired by Google to do that, we have worked with this for a while, and we have, I can only urge you, if you haven't done so, try this out, to showcase your pictures, your material to your customers, to your clients with cardboard, and especially with branded cardboard, because once you do, you probably go to the marketing departments, and they really love to transport the message, like we did here for Deutsche Telekom, to message on this piece which they can give to their customers. We have, and let me explain this picture a little bit. This well in the middle is called the virtual reality well. And a lot of people in the beginning said, well, this kind of low-cost entry with the smartphone, it's kind of poisoning the well because it may give you a bad virtual experience, and then people will be put off. We have now, since the last 2 months, really brought it to about 5,000 people to various trade fairs, expo, and so on. We showcased all the material with these cardboards, because we produce them ourselves with our branded cardboards. And I can really say it gets people hooked. And already with this simple applicability, people will buy it, and they will buy into this topic. And you don't have to give them an Oculus Rift, and you don't even have to give them a Gear VR, which is even, for example, no gender difference, but for women, it's this helmet kind of device putting on the head, they don't really like it, and a lot of people actually prefer to put something that they can, because it's new and it's scary, so they can put it away from their face right away if this gets uncomfortable. Interesting thing is, while we were touring with this stuff, we asked them, so do you know virtual reality, for example, augmented reality? And a lot of people said, yeah, I know it from TV, and then they walked away. And well, if you've seen it on TV, you don't really know what you're talking about, right? Because you have to try it out. Some people even came to the booth, looked at this piece where there was no smartphone inside, said, okay, oh yeah, okay, cool, and then went away. So really, actually, very difficult to convey without really having the time to explain to somebody face-to-face what is it virtual reality all about. So the general feedback in the end was, it is so simple. This stuff is so simple. I understand. I put my smartphone inside and it works. It's very cheap so that it scales. It's very important for corporations, for B2B. Because if they produce content like this very cool and expensive content, they want to use it as much as possible. And even on trade shows, if you put them in a Gear VR or in an Oculus Rift, there will be lines, and then they can show it to maybe 50 or 100 people, but that's it. Once you put this and port it to these cardboard devices with the smartphones, you have huge crowds of people building up around your booth, for example, on trade shows, and really trying it on all at the same time. It gives a whole new interaction between the customers as well. So that's something that is really liked. And of course, as I said, it can carry a message like this one. And yeah, if you are the first one as a business, as a customer, to put this on the head of your client, of your customer, then they remember you. So yeah, if you want to do a project with that, you can talk to us, or you can talk to your trusted cardboard supplier, but I really urge you to try it out, to use it to show your work. The next thing is, it's also a very cool thing, is controlling groups in your panoramas. And we're working with a partner here who have developed this cool software, and we're porting that together to cardboard now, which is, you see here, everybody gets a synchronized view on the panorama, for example, or the video or the sphere. And then you can see with a little tiny crosshair there, with a little dot, where do you look at the moment. I think it's interesting when there are more people. Now the image is a little bit not very nice resolution, but you see 2 dots here, 3 dots, and suddenly you see everybody who's like sitting next beside you, and you're not so in a different world anymore. You still have the connection to the other people, and the presenter can then say, well, look, you're looking at the wrong side, turn around, because that's where the action is. And so you can even direct where you want a group of people look kind of at the same time to make a point, for example. So this is a very nice way to synchronize, to do synchronized 360-degree tours, with cardboard soon to be had, and then you can have even large groups to synchronize. Another thing is 3D in 360. I don't know, how many have tried to do that 3D content in their 360 panoramas? Anyone? Yeah, quite a number. We saw that, it gives a lot of boost to existing pictures, especially here now in the, if you want to, for example, place a new machine or something, it's the machine over there inside an existing area, and you can easily capture the room first with 360 or a couple of 360s, and then add 3D objects next to it. And with virtual reality, it becomes very easy, and I'll talk about the tools a little bit later on that you can do it with, and it helps also the client to get more out of this content that you provide them. So it's good to talk about, the next thing when you talk to your clients about if you want to do this tour, this shooting, you could do this, you could do this, you could do that. Now let me talk a little bit about augmented reality and what we can do with that. And this one, the first one, our window, is this window into a different world. This guy is looking at it right now. We have put our posters here, and after I finish in a few minutes, then please come down here and look through it, look into our windows with this, with our apps. And what will happen here is, and it's difficult to explain, that you use this poster as a marker, and when you look at this poster with the cardboard, with the app, the virtual reality app, a window opens into the 360-degree picture behind it. So it gives really a cool, interactive, yet immersive feeling of looking through a wall into this 360-degree material. And you can even move around, like from the left to the right side, and look up into the corners and see different objects, maybe hidden objects. And then you can interact with it, maybe click it, and jump into the full tour or sphere. You can then spin it further and say, we have put 4 of these posters here. You could even display your whole gallery of work in form of posters and guide your people through it, and then they will look at each one of them and can start the tour if they want to. It's kind of like a gallery of 360, if you will, which is still not completely VR, but AR, VR. And yeah, right now we are doing that on a project basis, but we are working hard to put that in an app that everybody can use easily. If you try it out later, you can talk to us how it works, and then watch this space as we will release something soon. The other thing is what I have here. It's also a very unassuming little thing. It's made from cardboard. It's a cube with markers on it, you see here. And these markers can then show virtual objects, for example, products of a company, of a client, or, and that's also what we do, if you click it, you can jump into your sphere, into your panorama, for example, and then start a tour. So this is also kind of a way to have some more interaction with the content. And the same goes here. Try it out. Once I'm done, please come up here. I'll show it to you, and if you think this could be interesting, talk to us later on. Something that we've already heard a little bit about is vision and sound enhancements. I really like the Marzipano, which gives a lot of, some of these already kind of included. We're working, for example, now on a project with a city who is planning a new quarter in their city especially to cater for old people. And old people sometimes have this cataract vision, grauer Star in German, which gives you a vision impairment. So how does it actually feel like if you walk through the city if you have this kind of vision impairment? And that is where we come in, and we can simulate it, and you can walk through or even show it in panoramas. How would it look like if someone with a vision disability shows it? How would it look like if someone with a red and green eye weakness looks at it? And then you can design the city or design it accordingly. Also very interesting is we talk about scale sometimes. Once you take pictures, you just lower the rig, and then it gives a completely different sense of scale of everything. If you design something for children, for example, in city planning, this is a very interesting way of the filter. Another one is the distortion. For example, insect vision or snake vision, which you can easily put with virtual reality put over your existing panoramas or over your existing material. And we're working, for example, with an art gallery. We're exhibiting an animal exhibition, and then you can actually go inside and look at these existing exhibits with a completely new perspective, so with a completely new filter. Another one is this loop, this audio, bringing audio to stills. And we've already heard about this week, but I really want to stress again that if you see like 10 great panoramas, and one of them has a simple audio included in it, where you hear a machine rattling or birds chirping, this one will really stay in your memory. So I just really encourage you to consider putting audio or considering if it's a still image, even audio makes a difference. It adds to the immersion, another 5 to 10%, and helps also remember this particular panorama, this particular picture. And then you can even go further and say, well, because we can, in virtual reality with this headsets, we can direct, or we can detect the direct vision. So the directional sound cues, if you look to the dog will bark. If you look at the tree, the birds will chirp, or you can mix it all together and get a completely different kind of experience of an existing normal picture. So sound really does add to the immersion. Now, how does this stuff work? I think virtual reality, most of you know already. If you don't, just let me briefly go through it. There are 4 major components that add to it. It's the wide field of view, where you really, it's like an IMAX theater, and the stereoscopic 3D, where you have the split screen, we saw it already. Then you have the head tracking, as low latency as possible, and then you have the high resolution, Casey talked about it a lot also, which really starts only minimum full HD and up. So there's some technical limitations also on the kinds of phones that we're using, but you can already use 2 or 3 year old phones and still get a good effect. So how does augmented reality work? Let me ask, who knows how augmented reality kind of works? Okay, very tech-savvy crowd here, very good. So what it does, and I'm only talking about picture-based tracking, I'm not talking about 3D-based tracking, which is also possible, but still in its infancy, where you can, for example, look at this backpack, and then by the shape of it, by the 3D shape of it, you can recognize it. So what it does with pictures, like we did with the posters, for example, it kind of strips away everything that's not needed to create contrast and contours. And then it recognizes this contrast and contours and displays, with the rotationally correct view, displays the augment on it. And the augment could be 360, it could be a video, a flat video, a full video, it could be a virtual object, a game object, it could be anything. So this is something that you should remember when you talk about augmented reality. For example, you see this chair here, this green chair, if you look at it, this would not work very well because it doesn't track very well, because suddenly you don't see the contours, the shapes anymore. That's why, for example, on this cube, there are a lot of a wordle in the background, which gives you a lot of contour, a lot of shape on this picture. Think of it as a fancy QR code. Now, how do you get started? And we call it mixed reality, because we mix AR and VR. And unfortunately, there's no super easy point and click solution yet, but there are a lot of easy tools, and they are mostly freely available too. So what you have at the end, at the core, is, for example, the Unity or Unreal Engine, coming from the gaming sector and now widely used in VR applications. And especially Unity right now is much more adopted to the mobile version, because it's also kind of tailored for lower end specs. And Unreal Engine, on the other hand, plugs in very well with these others, but is also free. If you use 3D content, of course you have 3D modeling software, Maya or Max, but not necessarily. And then you have these augmented reality kits with Metaio, which was, by the way, last week bought out by Apple. So Apple is really entering now this space as well, big time. And then you have Qualcomm Vuforia, and these two you can combine together with the Unity and Unreal Engine. Then, as I said, if you want to put it for mobile, you have the Cardboard SDK and you have to port it to iOS or Android. The good thing is you can get started easily. If you have some time, yeah. It's the first thing. You can just get Unreal Engine, for example. It's free to use with all its functions, including virtual reality functions and so on, and to start to try it out, because it's never been as easy as today to start creating your VR content and AR content. For AR, you could, for example, get the Aurasma app. There are many more apps that you can just start with, where you create your own markers, and then you create your own content, which you overlay on these markers, just to get a good feel for it. As I said, we still are currently, from the technology perspective, a little limited, and there's no 3D tracking because the smartphones only have one camera. So it's very difficult to get the depth tracking from the smartphone. The processing power is still limited, so especially if you want to put on display virtual objects, 3D objects that are complex, yeah, it's a little bit difficult, and there's no point-and-click builder out yet. We may be working on something there, but right now you have to get into these engines and combine it together. So that's kind of like what you would work with if you design mixed reality solutions. And yeah, before we get to try it, that's what I already said. What we do is scalable, so for as many people as possible, mixed reality for everyone. We bunch these technologies together, and then we bring it out to mobiles, to cardboards, to our branded cardboards, and yeah, have a good experience. And with that, I would say, let's give it a try. The poster's down there. Diana will have a cardboard app there for you. I'll have the magic cube here. If you get some time, if we have some time after this one, I think, Luc, then yeah, I thank you for your attention, and hopefully, yeah, have a good last hours here of the day. Thanks.
I would like to ask one question.
Yeah.
Any question?
It's already up and can I ask you a question? Just